Hey mamas, welcome to Breastfeeding Relief with Bethany. We share incredible stories, tips, and breastfeeding ideas to help on your journey. I'm your host, Bethany Laverne, a lactation consultant and speech therapist who helps mamas with breastfeeding. Not all breastfeeding stories are the same, and we dive into those topics. Hi, thanks so much for being on our podcast. How are you?
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. I'm well. Thank you so much
Good.
for asking.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you. So why don't you go ahead and tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your children?
Okay. Well, I'm a mom of two. I'm a happy mom of two.
Good.
My two now are 12 and 10. So it's been a while since I've done anything breastfeeding wise, but I can still remember. It's not like that's faded into the distance. But about me, I work from home. There are about 5 enterprises between me and my husband. Currently, I edit, I write. I have an MLM as well, and my day job, which I call still working at home. That's for my husband. He is a real estate broker, so I handle all of the office things.
Okay.
Besides work, come summertime, which we're looking forward to it, we like to get on a boat and sail because we're between
Awesome.
two lakes.
That's awesome. I've never
And
done that. I would like to try someday.
it's fun. It is fun.
Bet. Yeah. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about your breastfeeding journey with your babies?
Okay, so with my first one, of course, because it's your first one, it's the new experience.
Mm.
I prior to me even breastfeeding, I didn't look at a book or anything else like that. It was the old wives' tale. Like I have my mom and I had a lot of women around me who have had babies and things like that. So I had a plethora of information to pull from. So I didn't read a book. I didn't look for any resources for myself. Um, my expectations were, of course, um, that I would actually have the baby, put him on the boob, and then things would be okay. Like I wouldn't have any issues. Well, when he came out, no one told me that it was not right to, if he fell asleep on the breast, because mine did all the time. And I just thought it was cute when he did it in the hospital after having him. But the nurse came by and said, no, you've got to wake him up. So rub him underneath the jaw.
Mm.
So I was like, okay, I will do that. And I felt kind of bad because he was just so cute. But at the same time, I had to do that to get him to feed. So it wasn't an easy feeding. Latching was a little bit of a struggle at first with him, but that he got to latching, which was great. But he'd always fall asleep on the breast. Always. It didn't matter if it was which one it was, he was just always falling asleep. And sometimes I wondered if that's what he was doing to help soothe him to sleep.
Oh, sure.
Um, but I wasn't sure. And it was funny because my journey was not like everybody else, the old wives, if you want to call it that, their journey, because everybody's is different. Um, it, it wasn't hard, but it was frustrating because he didn't always feed, and I guess if you want to say a full feed, so it
Hmm.
wasn't like I had a session of actually breastfeeding and then he was fine for a while. It wasn't like that with him. Whereas with my daughter, it was like that. She would feed completely and then she'd be off and she'd be fine for a couple hours. For him, he'd fall asleep. So I felt like I was constantly breastfeeding with
Hmm.
him all through the day and night. Was fine. And the other thing too, with the way that he fed, how the milk is produced, that was affected. And I remember one time we weren't a stranger to actually traveling with him when we had him. So as soon as he was 4.5 months, we were like, okay, let's put him on a plane and go. So I remember being inside of the Guinness factory, engorged,
Oh,
and
no.
finding a quiet corner to actually feed him just so that I could take off the pressure. So
Hmm.
um very different between the two of them. My daughter
Sure.
was fantastic. I didn't have any issues with
That's
her.
so nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing.
Mhm.
What is one thing you wish you would have known about breastfeeding before you had your babies?
Things to look out for.
Hmm.
So like I said, I had this wealth of knowledge, all be them saying, they go there and it's fine. Like no problems. Like no one ever has mentioned that there would be any issues regarding breastfeeding. No one said anything to me about if you get a clogged duct. No one said anything about the latching. Yes, they talked about that, but
Sure.
no one said anything about if they'd fall asleep on the breast. No one said anything about any other issues that could actually have consequences down the line as he grew and he developed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I wish I had known those issues prior to even him being born. So it was things to look for,
Mm-hmm.
So had I known that, things would have been a lot easier in my breastfeeding journey.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when you talk about he was like falling asleep and then you had clogged ducts, how did you get support for that?
Google.
Google. Dr. Google helped you
Google.
out. Okay.
Dr. Google helped me out. Yes,
Mhm.
unfortunately, but that is the truth, because it's a matter of actually my mom actually had told me the first time, like, I started feeling the pain in the one. I called my mom and I was telling her I'm getting pain in the one, and she told me it's probably a clogged duct. Go in the shower and run hot water on it. So I was like,
Uh-huh.
okay, which was fine, and it was easy to clear.
Awesome.
And but when it came to seeing if that was the right way, or if there was anything else I could do to relieve the issues,
Mm-hmm.
it was Dr. Google, which is unfortunate but true.
Right. No, that's great. Yeah. I know where I lived with our first son, there was a lactation support group every Wednesdays from 10 to noon. And so that was always nice to come with your questions, even though you felt they were silly, and just ask other moms, because I didn't want to put it in a Facebook group. And, Google can have 1,000 different answers. They say be gentle with
Yes,
your
they
breast and
do.
then be hard with your breast and use a comb and use a vibrator. And you're just like, I don't know what to do. And then you try them all, one
So
time and
Dr. Google that's the problem with Dr. Google.
right.
Yes, it's great for information, don't get me wrong, but at the
Sure.
same time, it gives you so much. You're like, oh, it's almost paralyzing. What do you do? How do you work this? Like,
Right.
how do you work this?
Right.
That's essential. It's like, they didn't send the manual with the babies, which is a sad thing, but that's what happens, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he did actually breastfeed, though, thankfully, right until he was about 4.5, and then we started to wean him because he was still struggling at 4.5 months to stay awake and have a full feed.
Oh, sure.
And it's uncomfortable when you're engorged. It's
Absolutely.
very
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
Right.
Yeah.
So did you stop your nursing journey at that time, or did you continue to pump for him?
I pumped until he was about 4.5, no, 5.5 months.
Okay.
And then by the time he was 6.5 months, he was full on formula.
Okay. Sure.
He was
Yeah.
cutting teeth, and that's a whole other story.
There's nothing like a baby with teeth that bite you.
Yes, exactly. So we said, let's just transition him. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, pumping, that was an experience on its own as well. That is
Sure.
not like a baby on the boob.
That is true. That is true. And then also trying to empty your breast. And then I had a mom tell me the other day, I just feel like I'm hooked up to a pump all day long.
Like yes, it honestly did feel like I was uh, a cow.
Yeah. 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 Oh
Yeah.
man. Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad you made it that far. And that's one thing I want to educate moms on is, it's okay at any point to say, I'm done. This is too hard. And it's okay to switch to formula or even pumping enough that you can give them one breast milk bottle a day. Every journey is different. And that's why I've decided to start this podcast to show moms, not everyone's journey looks the same. On social media, it looks all pretty. I pumped or, I breastfed for a year. I breastfed for 2 years,
And I do know moms out there that have been able to do that.
Sure.
Unfortunately, with the way John was, he was not one that wanted to actually eat.
Sure. Yeah.
He wasn't one to eat. He preferred to actually fall asleep.
Yeah.
He liked it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I also want to know, what was your favorite breastfeeding tool or your favorite item you bought while you were breastfeeding?
I have the nursing pads.
Oh,
The
sure.
nursing pads.
Mhm.
Because when I got engorged, and like I said, we were traveling.
Sure.
So I mean, that's not really necessarily a fun thing to actually have to deal with when
Mhm.
you're in places that you're not comfortable. You like it's
Mm.
we were in Ireland in the mountains. So it was like, let's fix this. So
Sure.
yes, the having the nursing pads to flip that out,
Mhm.
so I didn't, wet everything, soak everything through, was great. It was
Sure.
actually really good.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did enjoy those. I had some of the reusable ones, but they also have disposable ones. But yeah, I used to wear them to bed every night. Yeah, because I tended
I
to.
wore my kid to bed every night.
Oh, sure. That works too. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. I did want to go back to what you were saying, with being in Ireland and having a hard place to find to nurse.
Yeah.
And it's been a few years, and I do like how now so many different places are having nursing rooms. I walked through the Miami airport the other day, and there was a nursing pod. Actually, it was very nice. I was in a children's museum in Illinois, and they had a whole nursing room in the bathroom. So there was a separate room where you could shut the door with a nice nursing chair.
Yes,
I know a lot of. Mhm.
even up here, where I am, the malls actually have the family restroom, and they actually have like a room specifically for nursing as well, which
Right.
is nice to see. It's like, oh
Mhm.
my goodness, finally. But at the same
Right.
time, it's something that they really should have thought of a long time ago.
Right. Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know some baseball fields over here. I know the Cubs and the Cincinnati Reds also have nursing stations, which are
Nursing
super nice
stations.
with multiple chairs. Cause of course there's so many mamas, going to baseball games. So I
Right.
do appreciate that, that is becoming a trend, a fad. I'm not sure, that we're having these rooms for mom, that it's okay that you don't have to sit in the stands or sit on a toilet, and nurse your baby. So
That is, yes, so that's the thing. Or make your way back out to your car, to sit
sure.
down in your car to actually nurse with
Mhm.
all the windows open or your door open, especially in the summertime.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I do appreciate that. Awesome. Well, anything else you want to share with us before we go?
I'm really glad that you're actually doing this podcast,
Thank
because
you.
I'm really hoping some moms out there, especially new moms or to be moms,
Yes.
like they're expecting, actually take the time to actually not just listen to the old wives that are surrounding them and things like that, but also take the time to search for resources for themselves.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you. Yes. I've definitely had a few moms I've worked with recently said, I didn't even take any classes before. I was very unprepared. I definitely should have. So, those classes are sometimes 2 hours long. You got to go to a hospital, different ways to consume it. So I'm hoping that they find this podcast and hopefully can learn a few things on their drive to work or, working out or
yes,
something. So awesome.
precisely. It's very
Yeah.
important. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Anything to make their journeys a lot easier than what I had, anyways. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, thanks so much for
Right.
coming on. Thank you so much for listening in. If you loved this episode, it would mean so much if you would share it with another mama or post on social media and tag me. I want to personally thank you for wanting to help other mamas. You got this. I'm rooting for your breastfeeding journey.